I'm from testing background
Okay.
and almost 15 years of work. Last company was Accenture, and currently I'm in Vancouver, Canada.
Okay.
And I'm doing the freelancing work and wanted to start something um, in web development as a company. Okay,
Oh, okay.
so just wanted to gauge a little bit. Just wanted to know and learn web-based new things. What are there in the market, like DevOps, and some other stuff.
Okay, great.
So that's the reason I'm here.
Okay. So just to make sure that you are part of the WhatsApp group, right? For the because I'll be communicating.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm part of it. Kirti has added me, and so yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm just waiting for a couple of more minutes, and so
Sure.
Rahul has also joined us. Hi, Rahul. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here you.
Okay, Rahul, if you can quickly introduce yourself briefly. Uh,
Okay, hi, good morning all. Rahul here. I have 4 years of experience in software testing and automation testing.
okay, where are you based out of, Rahul?
So I'm currently working in Ahmedabad location in Brickstar Technology as a QA automation engineer.
Okay, okay, great, great.
So also I have experience in API testing by using manual and automation, but I'm make it a perfect
Okay,
in automation API automation.
okay, great. Okay, so I'll try my best to help you with that, Rahul.
Okay, but just I'm stuck in one condition. Suppose I'm getting response from JSON format.
Hmm.
This response I want to store in Excel file at a runtime, and again
Excel
next
file or XML file?
Excel file I want to store
Hmm.
response in Excel sheet.
Okay.
Whatever I'm getting response
Hmm.
from API,
Okay.
so I'm stuck in that situation.
Okay, okay, fine. So the intent of today's meeting is to basically discuss about the course which I'm going to conduct. This how I'm going to conduct, what I'm going to cover as a part of this course. That is the intent of today's discussion. I hope you understand that, right?
I go through that course detail.
Yeah. So other
Yeah,
part, as with respect to specific questions, maybe we can try to address it towards the later part of the meeting. Fine. Okay.
yeah, fine.
Okay, so today's meeting is not going to be I have muted you, all of you. So if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions if you have to. Okay, so just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Naresh Chaurasia, and uh, I'm an IT professional with around 15 years of industry experience. I quit my job like around 10 months back now, or rather 1 year. It's been 1 year. I've been into teaching since this whole 1 year. Prior to that, also I was teaching and I was also working for various IT companies. Since I have started teaching, I teach a couple of courses. So if you have had an opportunity to go to my website, I'm sharing this link with all of you. Okay. In this link, you will see that I teach a number of courses. I teach Selenium automation with Java, Selenium automation with Python. I also teach Python. I teach Java J2EE. I also conduct training for DevOps. So if you will go to this courses link here, uh, if you will go here, you will see that there are a number of courses which I teach as being a trainer, and I'll talk. I mean, I'm not going to get into details of all of it today, but today's discussion will be focused on web services API testing. Some of you who are in this session, I believe Kirti have already taught. She had been my student, and she is coming back for API testing. Okay, so let me quickly explain to you about the course, how the course will be conducted. For some of you like Kirti, who knows how I conduct the session, I do not.
Sorry for the interrupted you. Just
Yes,
I want to ask one question. In
yes.
web services API testing automation, can you cover microservices as well?
Uh, I can cover. So currently although it is not part of the course, but if it is expected of all of you and if it is required in industry, I can definitely do that. Don't worry.
Because industry also required for doing the automation, doing microservices automation. Because every developer has developed
Okay,
the microservices for doing the
okay, okay.
backend
I
services.
can cover that. Fine, that should not be
Okay.
a problem. So
Okay.
the guys, the best part of me being a trainer is that I'm from a development background. So if I have to accommodate for or add a new new maybe a module in the existing course, that should not be much of a challenge. So that way you'll be benefiting a lot out of my experience. Plus I mean generally since we are geographically separated, the way we will conduct this session, how the recordings will happen, how will we do code sharing, all of that I'm going to talk about with all of you. So today's focus is not to start with the course, but how I will facilitate these sessions with all of you, how you can benefit most out of my experience. That is what we are going to do. And then I will open the forum for your questions. Of course, you can ask in between as well. There is no problem in between. Okay. So let's get started with a small slide show. That's a small one, a couple of slides just to bring across the point as to what we are going to do as a part of this course. And then we'll go into the details of course content. And as one of you have pointed out already that they want me to include microservices as well, I'll be happy to do that. So I'm glad that you brought it up. So let's quickly start. Okay, and Rama, I'm turning off your video. I don't need video. Okay, I'm turning off the videos. So for the people who have just joined, today's discussion is mostly to set expectations with respect to what I'm going to cover in this course. Fine. So just give me a minute. I'll launch my PPT. And guys, girls, since most of you, we might never be meeting face to face. This is mostly going to be online session. So what I request to all of you is that I'm sending a link to you. It's a link on Google Drive. I request you to please enter your name and your current location and your contact details. Uh, 1 second, just give me a quick minute, please. So I will make a copy here. Okay, so I'm sharing this link with all of you. I request all of you to put in your basic details. Basic details, and the purpose is that if I know your background, it's easy for me to conduct the session in effective manner. Okay, and I can be most effective if I know. So just please take some time to give me your name, your location, what is your experience, current technologies, and what is your expectation out of this course. Please take extra time to fill in this. Please don't be in hurry, because after I go through it accordingly, I plan my sessions, I conduct my sessions. So please take some time. Plus I request all of you to also put in your uh, insert left. Okay, your contact mobile maybe, and then if you can also provide your email, that will be great help, so that we can stay in continuous touch. Okay, so I'm sharing this link with all of you, and it's an editable link. You will have to log in with your mail ID. Please go to this link and start filling in while I'm getting started with the session or the discussion. Okay, so I have left one sample here. with this guy Ahmed in USA. So you can start from next row and please put in the details. Okay, and just one last thing before I start. I am also sharing one group link. If I believe all of you are on WhatsApp, so there is no need to do that, I think so. So please start filling in your details here. I've shared the link on the chat with all of you. Okay, now uh, what is that we are going to cover today? I'm just briefly going to talk about API testing and how the course will be conducted and what all things I'm going to cover. Right now, I mean, I'm sure some of you know what is API, right? And a couple of you will not know what is API. But the 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 point of interest for all of us is that as of today, where the market is really booming with respect to automation, it might be Selenium, it might be API, it might be RPA, robotic process automation, or pretty much any kind of automation you might be looking at. API is an integral part of testing. Why it is integral part? I will try to explain to you what is meant by API so that you can understand and appreciate the value of API testing and why it is so important. You look at any what do you say job requirement, there will always be an API testing. There are no applications built without an API, right? So then what does API mean? Let me explain the meaning of API and how it fits into the entire scenario of things as to whatever we are trying to do, and then uh, we will understand uh, how and what all we are going to cover in the course. Okay, so moving on to next slide. Now we all are guys, I hope you have started putting in your details here. So just one. Okay, I am just waiting to open my drawing board. Okay, so now what is an API testing? Let's understand API. First of all, API stands for application, programming interface. Now what is application programming interface? I will get into the technical definition of interface maybe sometimes later when we actually get started, but let's try to understand and appreciate what is API with respect to this diagram. All of us are from, I believe, IT background and some kind of a testing experience we already have, right? So generally what we tend to do is I'm going to explain this example with the help of Gmail. We all tend to use Gmail or maybe Hotmail or whatever application or whichever email service provider you are making use of. Irrespective of that, the underlying approach or architecture or technology remains same. Okay, now let's say I am a guy at Google and who is providing Gmail services to you. This is Gmail. So what do? Suppose you have to log in into Gmail. You go to gmail.com, you type your ID and password, or maybe for example I go to LinkedIn, right? Let's either Gmail or LinkedIn, it's not going to be very different. So I go to LinkedIn. Okay, now once I go to LinkedIn, let me first of all for example, for the time being, I will log out of here. I log out of here, and in order to log in I have to give my user ID, password, and sign in. Now what exactly is happening in the background is, and this is I'm trying to explain the what is API. This is your browser wherein you could be having a login screen, right? From here you make a hit to your maybe let's say Gmail, or for that matter LinkedIn. In this case I have shown, right? So what happens, you hit a server, let's say this is a server, and server has some code, right? And code might be talking to database here. database. Now this is a more complex architecture. I mean, a lot more complex than what I have explained here. But for the time being, we'll keep it simple to understand the what is exactly API. Now, what happens that Gmail or LinkedIn or Facebook, when you hit a request, you get a response back. Okay, so you send a request to login request and you get a response back. Oh, yeah. Now, when you hit from your login screen to the server here, you might be calling API. Why I'm saying might be, because some of the products, or in fact majority of the products, are now being written with API. Now why API? What is the need for API? So I will answer this with an example. So Kirti, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Kirti, do you use your mobile also to access your Gmail account?
Yes.
Yeah, and you might be using your browser also, right? So
Yeah,
let's say this is browser and this is your mobile, right? Now, why I'm taking this example to explain why APIs, or why do we actually make use of APIs. Let's say in a world without API. So first of all, without API, what happens if you don't write API? Your implementation of Gmail services or LinkedIn will be strongly or closely tied to the browser, as in it can only communicate with the browser, right? But my intention is that nowadays, since applications are accessible on mobiles, on tablet, on browsers, on different kinds of browsers, on different devices, you might call them, right? I will expose this service. So the word expose is important. EXPOSE. I expose the functionality. What is the functionality here? The functionality is Gmail login. Gmail login. I expose the functionality as an API. What does that means? It means I provide you a method in a simple language. API is a method. I provide a method. With the help of that method, you can log in into Gmail. So what will happen? Your browser will do a call to the API, which in turn will call your business component here, and which in turn will talk to database, and that is how you log in. Now, since your call is to the API, either you can call with a browser, or you can call with a mobile, or your laptop, whatever it is, or your tablet, right? So basically, the benefit is that when you are building an application, you can have multiple user interfaces or GUIs to talk to your application or access the application, right? Does it make sense, Kirti?
yes.
Yeah. So API is application programming interface, wherein a provider of API exposes a given functionality. In this case, a simple login example I have taken. It exposes the API so that user can log in. So you can call the API with the help of browser, or you can call the APIs with the help of a tablet or a mobile and other things, right? So that is the purpose. Now, why APIs? The reason is that if you don't use APIs, you will be only blocked or tied to making use of API of browser. But with APIs, you can pretty much access any kind of user interface, either browser, a laptop, tablet, or thick client, which is AWTs are there, or thick clients are there, right? Thick clients. So when we make use of APIs, all of this can talk to the underlying application without having to modify the code. Just make the call to API and you are able to talk to that application and log in into the application. Are we clear so far, guys, girls? Can I get a quick acknowledgement? If it's clear
Yes.
to you, Rupesh, Rama, Rahul, Govind, Anamika, Ameya. You can acknowledge on a chat here with a quick yes or a no if there is any doubt before I can move ahead.
Yeah, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I just wanted to know who provides this API. So in this case, is it
Okay.
Google or Gmail that provides this API, and then anyone develops any application, then they can directly use that API to
Yes.
call
So
that?
So the provider, okay, so the question is, who is the provider of API, right? So who is provider of API? Suppose I am building a product, right? Now, okay, we all make use of link this WhatsApp, right? Very often. Okay, now WHA, I will explain the use of API with the help of a couple of years back, not very long back, we had we had this WhatsApp we were using, right? WhatsApp. But before, initially when WhatsApp was launched into the market, okay, we were only able to access WhatsApp via the mobiles, isn't it, Kirti?
Yeah.
So that was a mobile app, mobile uh, mobile app, which was what was happening. It was calling the uh, WhatsApp application, right? And you were able to chat. A couple of maybe 1 or 2 year back, WhatsApp provider. When I say WhatsApp provider, I mean the people who build the WhatsApp application. What they did is they also built web.whatsapp, web.whatsapp, right? .com. So you are able to access WhatsApp using this now, right? I think so. Most of you will be using WhatsApp using where is that? My web.whatsapp. Yeah, this one. So a lot of you now might be using web.whatsapp as well, right? This is web.whatsapp now, meaning that I can access the application via the browser or via the mobile app, isn't it, Kirti? Now, how is that possible? The provider of WhatsApp product, WhatsApp is like a product, isn't it? The people or the provider of WhatsApp product, what they did is they exposed various functionalities like login, like sending chat, like creating groups, like broadcasting messages, like sending images. Everything has been provided as a functionality using API. Okay, so who provides API? API is provided by the product developers to provide a functionality to you. So when you say, if I go to this group here and if I say meeting started, if I do this, what will happen internally is there is some kind of an API which this web is calling, right? So let's call it API. I'll call it send message, send MSG, right? So browser will call this one, and this can also call this, except that the interface is little different. This is a browser based interface here, yeah, and this one is mobile based interface, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so did I answer your question that who provides the API? API is provided by the product developers, the people who build the product, who provide, who wrote the product or who built the application will actually provide APIs. And how and where you can find all those details, we'll come to that once we get started with the actual sessions. All of that is well documented and it is available to you. So the person who is building the browser web.whatsapp.com, he or she will know how to call the particular method and what is the name of the method and what parameters to pass and what response we should get. So when you do testing, for example, what you test is you actually call this API, right? Send message, and you send a sample message to that, which is called a request, and then you wait for an expected response. Okay, and then you verify whether, so let's say in this group, one of the use case can be that this is a group which contains like so many people here, right? This one. Now, one of the test case is that when I send a message to this group, is it delivered to all the recipients, right? Yeah. So as a automation tester, you have to write some script to call a send message maybe to group. There is a API called send message to group. It will send the message to the group, and then we'll see a response coming back saying that yes, all people in the group has got the message. So that is what we are going to test as a part of this particular API which is accessible to us, and it is provided to us by the developer or the people who build WhatsApp application. Clear?
Yes.
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 Okay. Others, I hope it's clear to other people as well. So the question was, who provides the API? So API is actually provided by the developer of the application. Okay. So here also in this diagram, it is trying to talk of the same thing. If you will look at this diagram here. So there is something called database. This is the database. There is a business layer. What is a business layer? Business layer is the layer where your application is actually running, and this is your presentation layer. Presentation layer is it's a
Hello.
yes, Rahul. Yes.
Sorry for the interruption. Can you explain API architecture in detail?
Which architecture?
API architecture in detail.
Okay, Rahul, we will get into the REST and SOAP architecture once we get started with session. Today's intention is mostly to cover what all that we are going to discuss. So can we keep it for coming? I'll get into all those details, but today is not the day. I'll get into the REST different kind of APIs, SOAP and REST, architecture of SOAP, architecture of REST. All those are going to come, but not today.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
we'll get into
Yes.
that later on.
Yeah, one thing. Can you explain this overview again, please? Like how the browser interact with API before logging to the Gmail account?
Okay, so see, basically, what happens? What is your name, please? Who asked the question?
Rama here.
Okay, okay, Rama. So see, basically, how it works is when, and I'll get into more details later on. I'll just briefly touch upon how it works at high level. So when you have a browser, when it sends a request to your API, okay, the communication generally happens on HTTP protocol, HTTP or HTTPS, right? Rama, can you see here? There is an HTTP or HTTPS here, right?
Yeah.
So when it sends a request to this particular API, okay, there is something called request object. Request object. This is an inbuilt object provided in web application. We will do in a dissection of request object in the upcoming session, but it's like a request which is sent to the API, and API based upon the request. So let's say I call a login API, right? So HTTP request will go here in the browser. You will pass your user ID and password and hit submit, for example. So user ID and password will go as a part of request to this particular API. So let's say you sent your user ID as Rama and password as PWD, right? So this two information will go as a request, which is an HTTP request to the API. What is API? API is just a method, okay, which will get this value Rama and password. Then it will make a call to the underlying database, and it will verify if user ID and password is correct. If it is correct, then it will send a via this API, it will send a response back to the browser, okay, PONSE. So in the response, you will get some token, some kind of a token maybe, which will tell you whether it is a right user ID or password, isn't it, Rama? Okay.
Okay.
So once you get that token, you will validate that for the correctness of that token. If the token is correct, then it is a successful test case or successful login. Does it make sense, Rama?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a high level overview. Now, when we get started with the actual session, I will open up the details of what goes in request. A lot of information goes in request. What information comes back in response. All those things we'll get started with once we actually start hitting and building small applications for the automation testing. Okay. So
Hello, hi Naresh.
yes.
Just I want to ask some few things.
Yeah.
What is the difference between static API and dynamic API?
See, static APIs, there are some APIs. A static API can be a documentation API, for example, wherein you send a request and you tend to get mostly the same response, right? But a dynamic API could be an API where based upon the user's input, the response can vary, right? Hello, who was that? Rahul, right? Hello, Rahul. Can you hear? Was it Amya or Rahul 1018? Who was it? Rahul? Rahul, you had asked the question, right?
Yeah. This is Rahul. Yeah.
So basically, static or so dynamicness of an API basically means that that given, and so one case is you pull out documentation, right? A documentation can also be an API where you want to access documentation that is going to be mostly static and not going to change very often. With every request you change. But in case of a dynamic, if you send a user ID based upon the user input, the response which is going to come back might vary in terms of the data which is getting returned. So this is the difference between a static and a dynamic API. Okay, so further moving ahead, I just explained this diagram to all of you that there is an application which sends an API request. It talks to database and you get the response back, and response comes back to the browser client or to the app, mobile app which you might be using. Right now, what all kind of testings you can do with API? You can do functionality testing, entire functionality testing. You can do load testing. You can do creativity. Creativity testing is basically a testing wherein you might want to use different combination of APIs put together, as in how it will behave when you are doing testing, right? Because when you're doing testing, you have to be pretty creative in terms of how you can break a particular application, or if this API calls another API, which in turn calls another API, how would it behave, right? Plus, you can also do security testing, as in we all know security testing, wherein successful login is there, authentication is there, authorization is there. So all those things can be tested with the help of API. Proficiency testing, the API increases when developer are able to do. So like I was saying just now, all API documentation testing, negative testing. So these are some of the testing which pretty much covers the length and breadth of the entire product you want to test. So for example, taking again WhatsApp, you can test how the group works, how the broadcasting works, how sending of message works, how sending of images works, and how blocking works, unblocking works. So all that can be done through an API, right? And when you are going to test it, you have to write your test cases in such a way that you define a particular use case by calling a particular API and then testing or validating the responses like we do manually. Okay, so now generally when we talk of API testing, two important APIs which we will be focusing on is SOAP and REST. Each has details to be covered, which I will cover in the coming weekend sessions once we are starting. I'm not going to go into deep depth today, but SOAP and REST are two different mm, APIs which are used very widely in industry. Initially, SOAP was only there in the market, but nowadays REST is being used more extensively. But you as an automation tester will be expected to know how to work on SOAP as well as REST, and they are both different, completely different from each other. Although each one of them, I mean, you can use SOAP for login and you can also use REST for login, right? But the point I'm trying to make here is that irrespective of either you use SOAP for login or REST for login, you need to know how to test each one of them, and both are completely different from each other. Okay, from architecture point of view, I'll get into details when we get started, but what we are going to cover in the course is what is the difference between SOAP and REST with respect to the architecture, with respect to the request that you send in, the response that you get back, then when you should go for a REST compared to SOAP, and then what are the challenges in either SOAP request or a REST API request, what are the architectural differences, what is the what is actually meaning of REST, and why do we actually go for REST, and why do we go for SOAP, and what they actually mean. Okay, so all these things also we will cover. Now uh, why it is all important to know the architecture, because to be a good automation tester, if you know how internally the REST or SOAP work, you can write really good test cases, and you can really build scalable test cases and do a really good testing. Okay, so we will spend a good amount of time understanding architecture. Now what all we are going to look at in this one is, just 1 minute. So I'm again the differences with respect to SOAP and REST, which I'm going to talk with all of you, will be focused around these major things. No, it is not this one. Okay, so again, I'm not going to jump into the details of this one, but mostly my focus is going to be to talk about differences with respect to design, the approach, the statefulness, the caching, the security, right? And few other features. With respect to those features, we will look at the differences with all of them. Okay, so this is what all we are going to cover once we get started with the course. Now let me quickly come to the course as to what all I mean, I believe you must have had an opportunity to go through it, but still I would like you to know what all I'm going to cover and how the course will get conducted. So mostly my first session has a little bit of theory, and then we hit coding immediately. I being from development background, I believe that without hands-on and enough coding, you will not be very comfortable with becoming an automation tester. Okay, so each session is very nicely balanced with respect to theory and practical. And when I say practical, we will be doing them in the session itself, in the live sessions when the classes are going on. I will explain a concept and you will be expected to try out those concepts immediately with me. Okay, so that is how the sessions will go. And then post every. Hello Rupesh, are you trying to speak? I cannot hear you. Hello, Rupesh, are you trying to say something? I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, sorry, actually the audio was unmute, so
okay.
Now I'm muting.
Okay, you ahead. Okay, fine. So as I was saying that the way we are going to do it is we'll have good amount of hands-on. Every session will be nicely balanced with theory, and immediately you will try out those concepts in the live sessions while the class is going on. Plus post the sessions you will be given assignments to work on so that you can consolidate your concepts. So what I'm going to cover is we'll introduce SOAP, basic features and implementation. Then we'll do a little bit of manual testing to understand and use SOAP web services. Then we'll start making use of automation. Now there is a tool called SOAP UI which we are going to make use of to do this automation testing. This is one of the things which we'll make use of, right? There is a free version available. I'll tell you how to install it, how to set it up, how to download it from, all those things I'll let you know. So if you can go to details of each of these bulleted points, if you will see, we will understand different kinds of method. Now when you are communicating with using API testing, there are different methods available of communication. There is a get, there is a post, there is a delete. There are a lot of methods available. So we will try to understand each of these methods. Now, if you will look at this, and maybe some of you will be aware that when you send a request from request to the API, for example, and you get back a response, right? Okay, so there are different ways of sending a request and different ways of getting a response. You can get a response as an XML maybe, or JSON, right? Or maybe a Java object. All these things, how we handle each of this response in different formats, we shall look at all of that as to how you process the data which is coming from XML as a response, or from JSON response, or from Java object response. So that is what it is talking about. Plus, when you send a request, there are different kinds of requests. Get is there, post is there, put is there, delete is there, trace is there, and couple of more are there. So we will understand each one of them and what is the use of each of these methods. We'll have a look at that as well. Okay. Then we will get started with, so as you can see, if there is a JSON response, how do you do, or what do you do? XML response, how and what do you do about that, right? Then parsing of JSON means reading the content of JSON, parsing of XML, right? And then maybe we look at one sample application to understand, maybe it's a Flickr or any application which is having APIs exposed. So as a part of this course, what I will also do is I will deploy some RESTful web services and SOAP-based web services on your machines locally so that you can also practice. I'll deploy a sample applications on your machines locally. Then we look at some of the features of Pro SOAP UI Pro tool, right? Then we will write extensively, we will write test cases. So we'll write test cases, we'll build test suits, and I will tell you how to make use of test cases, how to make use of test suits, all those things we'll cover. Then we'll also look at load testing, how we can do load testing using APIs. Then we will also look at a Groovy basic. What is Groovy? Groovy is a programming language which is basically used to program your program in SOAP UI. Okay, so I will introduce you with Groovy as well. Plus, after that, I mean, this is in no particular order. So we will also look at Postman for testing, right? So how we make use of Postman. Postman is one of the widely used tool to do API testing. We will make use of that. Then we will also look at how we do how we work on SQL queries, because being an automation tester for API, you will be expected to basically know how to write queries, how to create tables, how to insert, delete, update row, how to perform various SQL operations, plus how you can start a server, set up a server, how you can stop a server. All those things I will be covering. Then TestNG. TestNG is a testing framework wherein I'll be covering this particular framework in great details. I think so, Kirti, you have already done this, but anyway, this is again we are going to cover as a part of this course, where we can look at how we do report generation and a lot of other stuff we will do here. Okay, then after we have done SQL programming, we will also see how we can do database testing with the help of SOAP UI. I mean, database testing means how you connect to database, how you validate the data in the database. That is something which we are going to look at. Then we will also be looking at a small framework development as a part of this course, so that you can consolidate and understand your concept well. What is a framework, why we build a framework, what is the value addition, all those things and details we'll get into once we get started with the course. Then now I also, as a part of the course, generally tend to take a couple of sessions for interview discussions where I would discuss some important topics. I'll take questions from you. We'll have a session where we can have interview discussions, which is focused mainly on maybe doubt clearing and discussing some important interview questions which are generally asked in industry. Then I'm going to cover rest assured. What is rest assured? Rest assured is also, you can call it as a framework or some inbuilt APIs which are open source, with the help of which we can also do automation. I mean, we will do it with SOAP UI, for example, this particular tool SOAP UI, plus we will do it with Postman, plus we'll do it with rest assured. So we'll try to do it with a couple of technologies which are pretty extensively used in the industry. And to conclude this session, or to conclude this course, We'll also see that how you can make use of Cucumber. Cucumber is what? It is a BDD, behavioral driven development framework, which is nowadays being used extensively in the market. So I will touch upon how you can use Cucumber to basically what you say, automate your APIs. Now coming back here, so as I have shown you the course content, there will be regular assignments after every session, and then we'll have projects also to work on. We will be covering and touching upon Cucumber, as I have already told you. We will be looking at JDBC. Now code sharing. So now that we are this is an online session, how we are geographically separated, so how do I share the code with you, and how do you share your code with me? How do we do the collaboration coordination? So I will train you to use a version control tool called Bitbucket. Okay, I will tell you how to use it. It is Git based version control tool. So for example, what is Git? Git is a web-based hosting service for version control using Git. It is mostly used for computer code. So basically, I will train you with how to make use of Git, how to check in your code, how to check out my code. So for example, this is a SOAP RPC. I have written an RPC. So I will give you access to my code here with this URL with my credentials, so that you can log in here and maybe use my APIs. Similarly, the code. So let's say I do a coding assignment or exercise in front of you. How do I share it with you? I'll put it in this repository Bitbucket, which is a version control tool, and I will tell you how to use it so that you can access my code. Similarly, when you work on an assignment, I will tell you how you can check in your code in your repository, and you can give access to me to that assignment, and I can also refer to your or look at your assignment. So that is how we are going to do collaboration, right, and code sharing. So GitHub is a it's a web-based hosting services, right, and we are making use of Bitbucket. It's a free tool for version control. Okay, then next is collaboration. Now, as I have already mentioned that we are geographically separated, then how do we how do we collaborate? So we are going to have as we already have a group on WhatsApp, plus more importantly, we are going to have a group on Google here. So this group is specifically targeted for people who want to post technical questions. So we all will be part of this group, you, me, other people from my other batches also. So like currently, if there is a group, I'm maintaining Java Selenium automation. So in this, I have a lot of users and mostly my students who can post their questions, and this will be visible to all of us in the group, so that if you want to share a code, for example, it's easy to share your code. So instead of pinging me on WhatsApp, if it's a big file, you can share your code here. I can go through your mail and I can answer you accordingly, right? For example, let's see. Yeah, so if you post this, so if someday you have a question, if you post it here on WhatsApp, it's really very difficult for me to read, right? If I put it here, it's really very irritating to read and understand, and it's pretty difficult. But if you put it here, it is easy for me to read it. I can respond appropriately by going through this group. So we are going to be part of a common group so that we can easily communicate with each other. Okay, so for collaboration, we'll have Google group, right? So that's pretty much how we are going to communicate. Now, I have already, I don't know if I have already mentioned, but in the beginning, I was talking about a couple of courses which I teach. I mean, I teach a number of courses. One of them is API testing. Then I teach Java, Advanced Java, Selenium, Python, and DevOps also. So these are some of my feedback regarding that. I'm also a trainer with Edureka. Edureka is one of the best online training institute in the world. They have a very good brand value in the industry. So this is one of my feedback from them, although it's related with another course, I believe. Yeah, this is Java J2E. Okay, so I've got pretty good feedback. As you will see, number of excellence I've got is very good. So, and similarly, I have same kind of feedback for my for my other courses. So if you will go to Google and search for this link here, which I'll share, or I believe I must have already shared with all of you. So these are my Google reviews for the classes and the courses which I have already been taking on different people. So I'm sharing this link again on the chat. So you can go through my reviews and see that the way I conduct my session and how I help people start from complete scratch without any prior coding experience, and a majority of them have actually got good jobs in industry. And I say majority because uh, this is how it works is after my course is done, and if during the course you are continuously doing my assignments and project, and if you uh, keep consistently trying it for 1 month or so after the course is over, you will definitely be able to get the kind of job you are looking. And my courses are very exhaustive, very intensive. I will make you do a lot of assignments, lot of projects. There will be a lot of hands-on. So that is something I will promise of. There will I will make sure that you have enough things to practice and try out. Okay, so now what if you miss a class? If you miss a class, generally I would first of all encourage you not to miss, but even if you do, then two things will happen is that I will try to have a quick catch up with you so that I can bring up to speed for any person who misses the session. Why is that so? Because if you miss my previous class, you will have difficulty understanding what is going on in the next class. So it is my responsibility as well as your responsibility to catch up maybe any day before the next session, so that at least you know what has been discussed in the previous session. Plus, all the sessions are recorded. So this demo also which we are having here today, this discussion is also getting recorded. I'll put it on my YouTube channel. So if you will go to YouTube and search for Connect to Tech, or I will share the link with you. Okay, so if you will go here, this is my YouTube channel. Now here, if you will see, I have got pretty good number of videos, around maybe 100 or so, wherein what I do, each session which I do, it will get recorded and it will be available on YouTube lifetime. So you can see that there is one on BD2, Cucumber, BDD, JDBC programming data from Excel sheet. So these are going to be available to you lifetime. You can come back, revise any topic, what we discuss in the session. All of it will get recorded and uploaded on the YouTube. Okay, so these are two ways how you can catch up for the things which you have missed in class. Plus sometimes in future you want to revise a certain concept or something you want to listen to again, so you can always come back to the videos and go through it. Okay, class recording, where do you find it will be so I'll create a playlist for you. So if you will go here, for example, I will create a playlist where so let's say, for example, one of my Python playlist, so as soon as the course will start, what I will do is I will create a playlist also which will have all the classes covered. So just 1 second, XP8 in Selenium. Yeah, so for example, if you will go here, this is one of my playlist of Python, right? So if you will click at this, and I'll create it one for you once we get started. So this has all the videos for Python which I have been teaching in my lectures. Okay, so this will be made available to you as a playlist. You can see different videos, right? Tuples, debugging, unit testing. So like this, we'll have a playlist to be able to access all the videos comfortably on YouTube, right? Then if some of you are also looking in help for resume writing, I will be definitely happy to help you with that as well. I mean, I have done it with all my students. I will spend time with you to help you write your CVs so that you can include the topics that we are going to cover as a part of this automation testing, API automation. Then last is career counseling. So what I mean by career counseling is that if at some point of time you think you want to discuss about how you should take up a certain topic, it could be with respect to the new technology you are learning for your new job or existing job, feel free to talk to me. Generally, I tend to respond to your questions when as and when I can time. So that's how I career counseling is basically, I mean, most of you are experienced, but when you are trying to learn a newer technology, a lot of time you are confused that how it will fit in your profile, where it will take you in future. So all those things you can always come back to me and discuss with me. Plus, so let's say some of you are learning API testing for the first time, but that is not the end of the world, right? There is a lot more you will have to do. When I say lot more, it will be other automations, other DevOps, how DevOps fit into the entire picture in your career, how API testing fits, how Selenium is going to help you, how Python learning. So basically, it's just that if you have doubt with respect to your career as far as automation is concerned, I would be definitely happy to answer you with your questions so that you can make a fair decision with respect to whatever you want to do with automation industry. Okay, so that's pretty much I wanted to talk about. I mean, and I'll get started in the coming weekend. That is Saturday, Sunday, we will have classes starting coming weekend. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask your questions. I'll open the floor for your questions, any doubt, any questions. We will keep technical questions for the next session, which starts on coming Saturday. But apart from that, any other doubt with respect to how the sessions will be, timings and other stuff, or anything with respect to the discussion we have had so far, please feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Ameya, Anamika, Govind, Kirti, Rahul, Rama, Rupesh, any question I can take? Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I don't just tell me.
Rahul, your voice is breaking actually. Are you using a... Guys, it's just a request for all of you. Just to make sure that it is a good experience for all of us, please get a earphone or a headphone with a mic. Okay, sometimes the mic in the laptop might not be a good quality, so just get a I mean earphone with a mic. It will make it very easy for you and for me also. You can ask your question easily and I can answer easily. I mean, of course you can type. Okay, generally, Anamika, the target is around 2 to 2.5 months. That is the target, but honestly I don't focus more on number of classes. I'll focus more on the fact that people should understand. Sometimes it takes more time, but that's the approach I follow. So at least you can assume that it is going to be 2.5 months, 2 to 2.5 months, but it might vary by one weekend here and there. That depends upon how is the progress, because uh, uh, all that information is already available on the website, Rupesh. You can check it out there. I have already shared the link with you. If not, I will share it again. Okay, I'll post it on the group, Rupesh. The details are available on on the on the website. Okay. Any other question, Rahul? I think so. I could not get your question. There was a lot of disturbance. If you want to type your question, or if you want to try again with your... Rahul, there is a lot of disturbance. Can you please type? Maybe if you can please type. There is a lot of background noise. Or maybe what we can do is, Rahul, we can maybe connect after today's session and sort out your what is that issue of why there is a disturbance, because in future also we'll have to make sure that it is sorted out anyway. Okay, next session starts on coming Saturday. Saturday and Sunday we will have class because I believe all of you are working. So you will be hoping or expecting the sessions to be on weekends. And the reason I'm saying it on weekends is because, I mean, if we, when you start, timing will be around same. So it will be 11 a.m. AM Indian Standard Time. Just give me 1 or 2 days. I'm going to confirm this timing, but by Monday or Tuesday evening, I'll confirm this timing with all of you. Okay, Rahul?
Sir, can we have it at 10 a.m. because 11 a.m. means like US timing will be 12:30 p.m.
Okay, okay.
So
Just give
10.
me time until Kirti. Actually, my one batch I'm going to wind up in coming weekend, so that is why I am telling that I will be able to tell by Monday. So please allow me little time. Okay, please allow me till Monday or Tuesday. I will keep your request in mind and I will respond on the group.
Okay, I'm comfortable for 11 also, like for a few days in case you are handling both the batches. So I'm comfortable, but 10 would be the better time for me. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm okay for 11.
Yes, I'll keep that in mind. I'll try my best.
Okay, okay sir, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys, if you don't have any, okay, Ameya, fine. So if you don't have any further questions, we will sign off. I will post the recording of this discussion we had on YouTube. You can go through the recording if you want to. And once again, if any of your friend is interested, you can ask them as well to join. One thing I assure you of is, and I think Kirti knows it very well since she has already studied from me, is that I will make sure that I will give you the value for your time and money, and you will get the best out of the course that I'm going to teach you. And I do it for all my students. Okay, so thank you so much. You have my number. If you want to reach out to me on WhatsApp, you can always drop me a message. And if you have no further questions, then we will connect on coming weekend, and we will be using Zoom. I believe Zoom is pretty good tool for online classes. So we'll get started in the coming weekend. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, guys, girls. I will see you next weekend. Have a nice
Thank
week
you.
ahead. Thank you and bye.
Thank you. Thanks.